Hello, hello, hello. Okay, welcome back. So, we're going to talk about kind of not everything is black and white. And that is going to be, I think, the new show's name or whatever. Um, okay, so we're talking today about the dating game killer. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of him, but this is kind of creepy. And this woman, I am so glad that she trusted her instincts and did not go out with this man. Okay, so his name is Rodney Alcala, Alcala. He murdered at least four people before his television appearance on this dating game where he actually won the date. But the girl that he won the date with said that she had this like really off, like gut wrenching feeling not to go out with him. Now, they didn't know that he had killed before, but as soon as this game was over and she decided not to go on this date, he would kill again. Now, for most people, September 13th, 1978 was an ordinary Wednesday. And for this girl, Cheryl Bradshaw, she was the bachelorette on the TV show, matchmaking show, The Dating Game. And that day was monumentous. From the lineup of 8 eligible bachelors, she chose one handsome bachelor, number one, Rodney Alcala. Now, but she said from the very moment Rodney was keeping a deadly secret, and she kind of felt like maybe somebody was telling her not to do this, like they were warning her, kind of. And she said, she just got a jolt of a woman's intuition that something was not right. And after the show ended, she had a conversation with Rodney backstage, and he offered a date that she'd never forget. But Bradshaw got this like gut feeling that he was just off. Like he was just giving bad feelings. And she said, I instantly started feeling ill. And she told Sydney, the telegrapher, that he was acting really creepy. And so she decided she was going to turn him down. Now, another one of the episode's bachelor, actor Jared Mills, said that Rodney was kind of quiet, and he remembered him because he told his brother about this one guy who was kind of good looking but kind of creepy. So if everybody's getting this sense of like being creeped out from this guy, it must be really bad, right? Well, he was always looking down and he would never make eye contact. So that was another reason why they all kind of felt a little, I guess, off put from him. And he had an extensive background check. I mean, because for bachelors to go on any kind of show, I guess you have to have background checks. And he had already spent 3 years in prison for raping and beating an 8-year-old girl. And he had done the same to a 13-year-old too, which also landed him on the FBI's most wanted fugitive list. Now, this is just some of what you'll hear, and I'm going to tell you a lot more. Now, sometimes in these cases, of course, they change their name, they change the way they look, they change, their demeanor, at least for a little bit, to try to throw everybody off. But obviously, he didn't get away with any of this time because everybody knew something was wrong. it was said that after Cheryl decided that she was not going to go on a date with him, it kind of probably fueled the fire for Rodney, because he felt like he, lost his chance probably to murder this girl. And that was going to be like an easy in for him. And he had claimed that before and after his television appearance that he killed between 50 to 100 different people. This is chilling story. I mean, you got to know that everything that's about to come to light is beyond ridiculous and crazy. Now, Rodney, he was born in San Antonio, Texas in 1943. And his father moved from Mexico when he was 8 years old, only to abandon them 3 years after they got here to the United States. And his mother then moved him and his sister to the suburban area in Los Angeles, California. Now, at the age of 17, he went into the Army, but they said that he kept having these nervous breakdowns, and he was medically discharged due to mental health issues. Obviously, he didn't get any help, and I wonder why he... Now, like I was saying, sorry, I had to get up real quick. He did get discharged, like I said, for mental health issues, but then he actually was a very smart man. He went to college and he had an IQ of 135, which is like genius status, so he was very smart. So he knew basically how to play the game, if you want to call it that. And when he went to UCLA, he wouldn't stay on a straight and narrow for long. And he kept, I guess, pinpointing or trying to figure out ways to lure people or women and girls and all this stuff to him. Now, his signatures, the way he liked to do things, because, as everybody does, every serial killer has this way of doing things and has, I guess you would say, a certain kink or whatever that they like to do. And his were beating, biting, raping, and strangling. And he would choke them into unconsciousness, and then they would come to, and he'd do it over and over and over again. He got this thrill of watching these women and his victims suffer. So he would repeat it until he just didn't want to do it anymore. Now, as his first known attempt at killing, he was successful in only 2 of these things. And the victim was Tali Shapiro, an 8-year-old girl he lured into his Hollywood apartment in 1968. And she barely survived her rape and beating. Her life was saved by a passerby who reported a trip to the police on a possible abduction, and he fled his apartment when the police arrived and remained a fugitive for years after. Now, he moved to New York and used his alias as John Berger to enroll in a film school at New York University, where, ironically enough, he studied under Romano Polanski. Now, after being recognized thanks to this FBI poster, was finally identified as a predator in the rape and attempted murder of Tali. He was arrested in 1971, but get this, he was only sent to prison on charges of assault because of how young the victim was, her family did not want to put her through a trial, which I can understand that, but this let him off on so many more charges where he would have been in prison for a lot longer. But then again, I also understand because this baby was only 8 years old. I mean, I would not want to put my youngest through that, and ever. Now, after he was arrested and he spent all of this time, he enrolled in film school at a New York university where, like I was saying, prior to his arrest, he studied under this guy was one of those major influencers in the arts at this time. Now, he soon spent another 2 years, and he only spent 3 years actually in prison for a while to do, how do I say this, for those charges on that little girl. And after spending 3 years behind bars, he soon spent another 2 years in prison for assaulting another child, a 13-year-old girl. And the authorities regrettably let this man travel to New York to visit relatives. Now, believe within 7 days of his arrival there, he killed a college student named Elaine Hoover. She was a daughter of a popular Hollywood nightclub owner and a granddaughter of both Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin. Now, can you believe they let him go to another state and he was still charged? And he already had found time to murder someone. Now, who knows, why? If you have this kind of, I guess, background already, that you are allowed to travel and nobody thinks, doesn't think anything of it. So to me, that's wow. Okay. Now, soon after all of this happened, he got a job. He somehow got a job in Los Angeles Times. He was a typesetter in 1978 under his real name after his charges were known. And he attached his criminal record. So they knew by his actual real name what his criminal record was. And so he was a typist by day and a rapist by night. He lured in young girls to be part of his professional photography portfolio. So some of these girls wanted to be actresses, and they wanted to be models, and they wanted to be, something famous. And he used his charisma and his charm and his looks to lure these young girls, and by saying, I'll take your picture and we'll send them out to agencies. And yet the girls that he took these pictures of, most of them never showed back up. They were never seen again, which is very unfortunate. Now, going back and listening to all of his Tell Bachelor Bradshaw stuff, the best time is at night, is what he said, quote unquote. And I think it was because he knows that at night is when he gets to target and he gets to do his most gruesome things at night. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing, I think, where he goes and he's out there, and he's living his days like he's a saint. And then his nights, he turns into this Hyde guy where he's the devil in disguise. And he uses his niceness to lure these girls. And as soon as he gets them alone, he's not who he acts or is appearing to be. Now, years after his appearance, 17-year-old Lane Leadham, was lucky enough to walk away unscathed from a photo shoot with Rodney. She remarks how he showed her his portfolio, which, in addition to shots of women, including spread after spread of naked teenage boys. Now, this is horrible. This man should not be walking the earth. This man should have not even been allowed to be out at this point. Because, like I said earlier, if he would have actually been charged for things that he had done previously, he wouldn't even have been anywhere to be able to get near these victims, these other victims. Now, to the public, to the aid of the victim's identification because of her, she kind of stayed in, like the background stayed hidden, and she just knew that it was a horrifying moment, and that she, like the other victims, or soon to could have been victims, said that he gave off this weird demeanor and he felt creepy, and they just knew they had to get out of there. Now, he went on a killing spree that one of his 12-year-old victims, Robin Somoso, she disappeared from Huntington Beach, California on her way to a ballet class on June 20th, 1979. Now, Somoso's friends said that a stranger approached them on the beach and asked them if they wanted to do a photo shoot. Now, okay, so you've got a child that is accessible, however you say that, to any person, and, thinks it's a privilege to have somebody to take pictures of them that is supposed to be good at it, famous, whatever. And this child does not realize that this is a predator. A predator that is an older man that wants to take pictures of children. This is somebody that lurks and searches for just that right victim, where they are old enough to know better. And even if they are old enough to know better, I guess he has these looks and tells, and of course, you want to have somebody spend that type of have that type of relationship, and you want to be able to, find that person, I guess, in a way, you know what I mean? Like, he knew exactly what to look for. Now, of course, after he did this photo shoot or asked her, that's when she comes up missing, I guess, when she's alone. So they could only think of the specific person that had approached him prior to her becoming abducted. Now, her friends, declined, and Samso, or whatever, I guess that's how you say her last name, left and borrowing a friend's bike to hurry to get her back to her ballet class. And I'm guessing at that time, that's when he took her. And 12 days later, a park ranger found animal ravager's bones in the forest area near the Pasadena foothills of the Sarasota area. And a police sketch artist drew up the composite of the person, Rogers, the person that killed her, and they passed it around And finally, Samso's earrings were found in a storage locker, and they knew that they had their man, like who done this, because he had rented the storage locker, I'm guessing, to keep his like trophies. So he kept things that would remind him of all of the people that he supposedly murdered and done these horrible, despicable acts to. Now, the trial began in 1980 for this murder, and following a rather long and windy road to justice, the jury found Rogers guilty of first-degree murder, and he received the death penalty. However, the California Supreme Court overturned this verdict due to the jury being prejudiced. They felt that learning of Alicia's past sex crimes, or Rogers' past sex crimes, it took 6 years. 6 years to put him back on trial. So it's like he's just sitting in jail, biding his time, which, it seems like that seems to be a very big, I guess you would call it like coincidence that this happens quite often. Now, the second trial trial took place in 1986. And the jury sentenced him to death. Now, this one didn't stick either. And in 9 court circles, the appeals panel overturned it. In 2001, LA Weekly wrote, in part because the second trial judge did not allow a witness to back up the defense's claims that the park ranger who found Robin Samoan's animal-ravaged body in the mountains had been hypnotized by police investigators. So now they're trying to say, because he was hypnotized or he wasn't hypnotized, or, that his testimony is not credible. Now, finally, in 2010, 31 years later after the murder, a trial was held. Just before trial, Orange County Senior Deputy Matt Murphy told LA Weekly the 70s in California was insane as far as treatment of sexual predators. Rodney is a poster boy for this. It is a total comedy of outrageous stupidity. Now, I have to agree, because I'd done that story here prior to where that man, talking about one of the other cases that I had covered, he got away with so many despicable acts and did not get caught. And he kept getting out and kept getting released. And this is happening around the same time as John Wayne Gacy. This happened around the same time as one of the other cases that I recently done. And I have to agree. This is an error, I think, where sexual predators did not learn their lesson. And they just kept getting away with things that they should not have gotten away with. And if they were charged correctly, in my opinion, on the first go-round, like they would have been today, a lot of these victims would have still been alive. Now, during the years he spent incarcerated, he published a book. He's done a show. He contested DNA swabs done on prisoners periodically for the police department's evidence bank. He also filed 2 lawsuits against California. One was a slip and fall accident, and another one was for prison refusal to provide him with a low-fat menu. Okay, come on. You're in prison. It's not rocket science. Now, even though now 31 years after this murder, investigators also had concrete evidence against him in 4 other murders in decades past, thanks to personal DNA swabs. Now, he left his DNA on victims. But These murder charges, along with Robin's, were prosecutable, but they wanted to combine the new murder charges along with the old murder charges in 2010. Now, jurors were in a bizarre ride when, acting as his own attorney, asked himself questions, referring to himself as Mr. Alcala, or however you say his last name, and a deep voice, which he would then answer. The prosecution question and answer sessions continued for 5 hours. Now, could you imagine sitting in court and watching him go into this like manly pose or whatever you want to call it, and then ask himself a question and then answer it in a different voice? Like, that seems kind of crazy to me, but to each their own. Now, he played off as if all these other charges were dumb charges, and he used a song as part of his closing arguments. Now, he also didn't remember killing the other women. He said the only other witness for the defense was a psychologist who offered an explanation that it's called a memory lapse. And he couldn't be, it could be a borderline personality disorder. So he turns into this other person, I'm guessing the person that played lawyer, and then he would turn back into himself after the murder was done, which I understand there are mental illnesses out there, but this is one that just made me want to laugh. Not because of the circumstances of the case, but because of how ridiculous this was. Now, a surprise witness at his sentencing was Tally, the girl that he had raped and beaten within an inch of her life about 40 years prior. And she said that she just wanted justice for Robin, Jill, Georgia, Charlotte, Jill, Pernue, too, and had finally been achieved. The court handed him the death penalty again for the third time, so he didn't get away with any of this. And since the trial, the investigation continued to link to the dating game killer to many other cold case murders, including 2 of which he pled guilty for in 2013. The full extent of his crimes may never be known. Now, what I understand, he still was on death row until he died of natural causes at the age of 77 on July 24th of 2021. Now, he did get away with it, and like they had said, he had claimed, I guess, a bunch of different times that he had murdered over 150 women or victims. He had well over it, but they couldn't prove that at the time. But to me, if you can prove that he had murdered one and he's getting the death penalty, I understand that everybody wants a verdict of, guilty for the victims. But you can't get death twice. You know what I mean? So you're going to die. And I would take that as a win against anything that had already happened. Because in my case, I would be like, at least he's getting what's coming to him. All these people. And I believe that the girl that decided to not date him had a very good instinct. Like, maybe she had a guardian angel watching out for her, because if she would have went on there, on this date with this man, I almost believe and could guarantee you she would have ended up being one of his victims. Now, he just, there's no way of telling exactly how many of these victims that he actually murdered. Like I said, he was very suave. So could you imagine being a 12 or 13-year-old girl and a man that has got this expensive looking camera or something and comes up to you and he's like, oh, hey, I want to take pictures of you. I believe you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And I want to like help you get rich or help you, get this or help you get that. Now, would you not go with him? Would you not accept it? Those are the kind of things. And I don't think that these girls knew what was coming. Anyway, what do you think? I know this was a long one, but I've been away for a few days because of the weather. It's finally starting to thaw though. So I hope you'll have a great day and I'll see you later.